Senator Banks is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair Powell, thank you for presenting your report to the committee today and for coming to meet with me last week in my office as well. The Federal Reserve has enormous power over Americans' ability to work and earn a living. And the Fed's interest rate decisions have an especially big impact on industries like manufacturing, which depend on big investments. Chair Powell, the Fed's data on manufacturing is still holding up nationally, but it doesn't look very good in the Chicago region, which includes most of my state in Indiana. The Beige Book says manufacturing jobs are declining and fewer people are buying manufactured products. It also says that steel demand is at a low level, auto production has slowed, and machinery orders are down. What does that say about the rest of the country? When manufacturing in the heartland slows, does that signal trouble for industries in other parts of the country?
It can. It doesn't always, but it certainly can. We watch the manufacturing sector. It's very important. Manufacturing jobs tend to be high productivity jobs. They're very important in our economy. But I would say over the last couple of years, manufacturing was pretty weak during years in which we had high GDP overall. Manufacturing is a smaller proportion of the economy than it used to be, but it's still extremely important.
Senator Reid asked you why free trade doesn't work when one of the giant players doesn't abide by the rules. The China shock is proof of that. The Fed has a mandate to maximize employment. How do you account for the whole industry that is repeatedly suffocated by unfair competition?
You know, we don't do trade policy. We're not responsible for it. We don't comment on those who do trade policy. But we don't really have a role in focusing specifically on that. That really is left to those who have responsibility over trade.
Do you agree that a healthy manufacturing economy is important to a healthy overall U.S. economy, though?
I do.
I hope you had an opportunity to read Robert Lighthizer February 6th essay in the New York Times. He explains why a big trade imbalance between any two countries is harmful to citizens in both of those countries. How does the Fed take the trade deficit into account in your decision-making at all?
Again, we really don't. We're aware of it, but it's not something that directly affects our mandate goals.
So not at all?
No. I did read his book, by the way. I didn't read that editorial.
Fair enough. It is a good book as well. I want to get into tariffs. It's no secret that most conventional economists hate tariffs. But I want to note that Indiana gained manufacturing jobs during President Trump's first term with the 2018-2019 tariffs. Even though the economist's conventional wisdom is that tariffs will reduce jobs, do you commit to following the data and not prejudge any outcome?
Very much so, as we did in 2018-19.
Finally, my staff reviewed the research paper on tariffs in preparation for this hearing, and I want to point out one of them called The Employment Consequences of U.S. Trade Wars. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter this paper for the record. It found that the timing of tariffs are very important. It found that China's retaliation to President Trump's tariffs did hurt U.S. jobs, but if the U.S. had imposed tariffs on China much earlier in the 90s and early 2000s, it would have almost completely eliminated job losses due to the China shock. And I know you've said what you said before, but will you and your staff please take a look at this paper?
We certainly will. I imagine we already have, but I'd love to see it.
I appreciate that. Home ownership is an essential part of the American dream, but families are struggling to afford homes. In just 5 years, the price of a typical home in Indiana has gone up more than 60%. More than 3/4 of American families can't afford an average home in their neighborhood. How do the Fed decisions about monetary policy affect the ability of regular families to buy a home?
Most of what will have driven that increase will be about some of it's about local regulation, as you I'm sure know. It's also about just wages going up and costs of materials and things like that going up. And land costs and all that are going up a lot. The channel that through which we affect housing is, of course, interest rates. And right now, interest rates are still pretty high, but actually, mortgage rates are really not set at the Fed. Those are really key off of longer run things. Nonetheless, we're clearly having an effect on the housing market, and that'll unwind as we normalize policy. But we're still going to be faced with high insurance costs and high material costs and labor shortages and all the things that keep driving housing prices up across the country.
Thank you. My time has expired.